kind of feel new. And I enjoyed that. And I thought Brother Marco did a good job, and Brother Enrique did a good job in interpreting. I'll remind you of the two little babies, 16-month-old girls with heart problems. Their family's name is the Cameron family, and just pray for them that the Lord would give grace there for the health of those two little babies. And our friend Lynn Zielinski asks that we continue to pray for her. She has cysts on her kidney that are cancerous, and possibly they may have to remove the kidney. So remember her in your prayers. And want to thank the Lord for Angie. She's doing much better. The Lord is answering the prayers for her, that she was able to sing with Joanne and Melinda this morning, and that is something we haven't seen for quite a while. So we thank the Lord for that. And pray for Hannah Cummins. Her health is getting worse, and so pray for her and her family. The last I heard, Linda is going to have shoulder surgery the 22nd. That'll be this week, and so remember her in your prayers. I don't know if that'll happen or not with all that's going on with her family, but remember the Cummins family. And I asked Darren about his dad. His dad is not had his meeting with the doctor yet, so pray for Reuben Koski and for his health, for his salvation. And pray for Brother Darren. He's going to have some fluid removed from his knee. And, it doesn't sound too bad, it's just just draw some fluid out. He said they go in the back of the knee. The front doesn't sound so bad to me, but the back, So he's going to do that this week. So pray for him as he travels to Nashville to do it. And pray the Lord would give him healing so that he wouldn't need to do that again. Still remember to pray for Justin Fitch and pray for his salvation. I haven't mentioned it, but Thomas Krause's daughter Mia has been having seizures, I have here, and so remember her in your prayers also. Brother Marco, I guess, will be traveling a little bit. Other churches know he's not going to have time. Oh, okay. No time for that. Well, he'll have to mingle. He'll have to come here. Which I'm sure there'll be several here that he can fellowship with and talk about his work with. So pray for him concerning that. Remember Cadillac Baptist Church in Cadillac, Michigan, in need of a pastor, and pray the Lord will strengthen them, hold them together, and pray for Brother Enrique and all the load of mission work that he has. And good to see the Arkansas folks here. It was good that they came this far. We understand it's a long trip home, and 4 hours, I think, or perhaps more, the way the traffic is now on I-24 into Kentucky. That could be 4 hours to get past that, So, but remember them in your prayers also concerning that. The conference is upon us Tuesday. And for a whole lot of us, we've already started, haven't we, with plans and cooking and responsibilities. And so pray the Lord's blessings on that. All right, let's go to the Lord in prayer. And Brother Charles, would you mind opening the service for us? Amen. All right, if you would stand and we'll sing 135. 135. Jesus has a table spread where the saints of God are fed. He invites his chosen people, come and dine. With his manna he doth feed, and supplies our every need. Oh, 'tis sweet to sup with Jesus all the time. Come and dine, the Master calleth, come and dine. You may feast at Jesus' table all the time. He who fed the multitude turned the water into wine. To the hungry calleth now, come and dine. The disciples came to land, thus obeying Christ's command. For the Master called unto them, come and dine. There they found their heart's desire, bread and fish upon the fire. Thus he satisfies the hungry every time. Come and dine, the Master calleth, come and dine. You may feast at Jesus' table all the time. He who fed the multitude turned the water into wine. To the hungry calleth now, come and dine. Soon the Lamb will take his bride to be ever at his side. All the host of heaven will assemble be. Oh, 'twill be a glorious sight, all the saints in spotless white, and with Jesus they will feast eternally. Come and dine, the Master calleth, come and dine. You may feast at Jesus' table all the time. He who fed the multitude turned the water into wine. To the hungry calleth now, come and dine. You may be seated. Let's turn to 145. 145. Wonderful story of love, tell it to me again. Wonderful story of love, wake the immortal strain. Angels with rapture announce it, shepherds with wonder receive it. Sinner, oh, won't you believe it? Wonderful story of love, wonderful, 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 wonderful story of love, wonderful story of love. Though you are far away, wonderful story of love, still he doth call today, calling from Calvary's mountain, down from the crystal bright fountain, e'en from the dawn of creation. Wonderful story of love, wonderful, 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 Wonderful story of love. Wonderful story of love. Jesus provides a rest. Wonderful story of love. For all the pure and blessed, rest in those mansions above us, with those who've gone before us, singing the rapturous chorus. Wonderful story of love. Wonderful, 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 wonderful story of love.
We're in our study of Samuel, 1 Samuel chapter 14. Last week we finished with this huge army that the Philistines had assembled around Israel, and how many had fled and hid. And this army had 30,000 chariots, 6,000 men on horseback, and men without number. And the Israelites only had 3,000 soldiers that were given to help Saul, and they were spread out. They weren't all together. Some were with Jonathan and some were with Saul. The Philistines, as we talked about last week, had restricted them from having blacksmiths, so they were really controlling their ability to make weapons. And so they had to, this army had to manufacture whatever they could from their plowing and gardening tools to make weapons. And so under this big threat of this army that came in and broke into their land and pillaged their land and took the spoils, they ran in fear. Many of them went to caves and hid in thickets, and some of them even left the country. And so what we find that takes place next gives us even more insight into Saul's leadership, or lack of leadership, if you will, and his character. So in chapter 14, in verse 1, it says, "Now it came to pass on a day that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bare his armor." There's an indication here that he's a grown man. But Jonathan was very young. Some think, if you read, some would say he was in his teens, but I think he was probably in his 20s. But he could have been. He could have been a young warrior. Men were matured, obviously, much sooner then, and even 50 years ago than what they do now. And so he had this young man with him. It tells us there that Jonathan, the son of Saul, said unto the young man that bare his armor. So he's younger than him. He might have only been 15 or 16, and he was considered a young man that would carry the armor. And so it's interesting that Jonathan, King Saul's son, had made or fashioned some sort of armor, had some sort of weapons that, if you wore it all the time, would be hard to, it would wear you out, carrying all that weight. So a lot of times you had someone to carry it for you, and you would put it on in the moment of battle. He says to this young man, Saul's son, "Come, let us go over to the Philistines' garrison that is on the other side," but he told not his father. And so, as we know, they had 3,000 men. 2,000 were with Saul and 1,000 were with Jonathan, but they only have 600 now, as we will read. And so it sounds like, many of them were either cut off or hiding, or they were scattered in fear. But we see here that Saul and Jonathan both had armor, and indicating that Saul probably had at least had some sort of weapons and some armor to wear, and they were no doubt very scarce, and probably very few men had any real weapons. But Jonathan tells his servant privately. He doesn't let his dad know his plans. He says, come let us go over to the Philistines' garrison. They apparently had an outpost there that they had left in their land that was on the other side, but he told not his father. He chooses not to tell his father, and probably for good reason, because he knew probably Dad would poo-poo his idea, and say, no, you're not doing that, you fool. You're going to go over there with yourself and your armor bearer and take on this garrison? But there's an old saying that it's easier to ask forgiveness than it is to ask permission and not be able to. I used to kind of do that a lot because I'd go fishing on a lake and I'd think, well, it's a private lake, but I'll go fishing, and if someone tells me, it's a private lake, I can't fish there, then I'll go, oops, sorry, I'll go fish somewhere else. But if you go to someone and say, can I fish on this lake? They go, no, it's a private lake. Well, then you can't fish there. So he's basically saying, I'm going to do this because I don't want to tell my dad because he'll probably stop me from doing this. So he says he doesn't tell his father, but he told not his father. And so in verse 2, we know that they've already been attacked. They've come into the land and they've taken the spoils and they've scattered the people. And it says, and Saul tarried in the uttermost part of Gibeah, under a pomegranate tree, which is in Migron, and the people that were with him were about 600 men. So that's all he had as far as 600 men there in this group of people. He's apparently got some sort of camp set up there. He's got a place for himself under a shade tree, a pomegranate tree, and he's really not doing anything. He's probably trying to figure out what to do with 600 men against an insurmountable odds of an army this size, where you can't even count the foot soldiers, let alone 30,000 chariots and 6,000 men on horse. And so he's there, and he isn't doing anything. And it says in verse 3 that Ahiah, who is the high priest then, the son of Ahitub, Ichabod's brother, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eli. It's interesting when you read Scripture that you find that Ichabod was the one of Phinehas' child that died when the ark was taken, and Eli died when he heard the ark was taken, and Phinehas was killed in battle, that he had a brother. And so his Ichabod's brother here is Ahitub, and his son is Ahiah, who is the high priest now. And it says there, the Lord's priest in Shiloh wearing an ephod. And the people knew not that Jonathan was gone. So there's a high priest there, and they didn't realize that, you got 600 men and probably other people there that are with them, and they disappeared, 2 people. It's easy to lose 2 people in 600, 700, 800, or 900 people that you've got. May have been dark. And so they sneak off, and it says in verse 4, and between the passages by which Jonathan sought to go over unto the Philistines' garrison, there was a sharp rock on one side and a sharp rock on the other side. And the name of the one was Bozez, and the other was Senis. And the forefront of the one was northward and over Mishmash, and the other southward over against Gieth. And Jonathan said to the young man that bare his armor, come, let us go over unto the garrison of these uncircumcised, that it may be that the Lord will work for us, for there is no restraint for the Lord to save by many or by few. So Jonathan, young man, says to this other young man, younger than him, he said, let's go and go over and see if the Lord might be in this, if the Lord will work for us. And if he will, he's sort of laying out the fleece like Gideon did. Let's just see how the Lord works in this, and the Lord will show us, and the Lord will guide us. And there's a really great verse in this too, because there are 2 men going up against at least 20 to 100 or more in this garrison. And look what he says. He knows the odds are against him, but he says, for there is no restraint to the Lord to save by many or by few. He's telling his young man here that I know it's just me and you. But he said, our God is not limited. Our God, nothing can restrict him. Nothing can hold him back. Nothing can stop him from doing whatever he wants. He has no limits. He can choose to do whatever he wants to do. And so, when you think about the days of which we are in, I was reading in Thessalonians there a little bit around where Marco was preaching from, and it talks about that great falling away. And I think we're in that time. We're in that time where there is just, people come up to me and they say, well, how's the church doing over there? And I say, we're doing good. But, in a lot of ways I could get under the juniper tree and say, well, we've lost this one, and we've lost that, or, we're just small. And I had a man ask me the other day, how big is your church? And I'm sitting there going, we're small. We're a small church. It was a man who was delivering the shed, and he was asking me about the size of our church. How many people we have? And I said, well, we have around 30, 35. I said, if everybody showed up and we had some visitors, we might have 40 or 45, but we're a small group. And so you see, if you go and visit churches, I was just over there at Paducah the other night, and it had their attendance of 53 or 54. Well, I remember when that was 120 or 130, and you don't find that anymore of the Lord's kind of churches. And so, he's basically saying that, the Lord can do whatever he wants, and so that's great encouragement for us, because he took 2 men here to defeat an army. And we may be getting older. Somewhere have few that are young, and we're few in number, but the Lord's not limited. He can do with us, and he can do whatever he wants with us. And so there's great encouragement in that verse. And so then we come to verse 7, and his armor bearer said unto him, do all that is in thine heart. Turn thee, behold, I am with thee according to thine heart. That's a pretty bold statement for a young man to say, I'm with you in this. Whatever the Lord leads you to do, whatever the Lord lays on your heart, I'm here with you. You haven't heard the whole story yet, Eddie. I read this, and then he says to him, good, you're in, You're in with me on this. And John said, behold, we will pass over unto these, and we will discover ourselves unto them. I'd be going, what? We're just going to walk over and go, here we are. Or we're going to announce that we're here. We're not going to just sneak up on them and just catch them by surprise and attack. We're going to go over there and then tell them we're here. That's not a very good surprise attack. That's what I would be thinking. But, this young man was in it. And I just think that he had such confidence in Jonathan. Much like, Isaac did in Abraham. He said, we got the fire, we got the wood. He trusted him. And he said, the Lord will provide a lamb, and the Lord did. And so clearly the Lord was working not only in the heart of Jonathan, but in the heart of this young man too. And so he explains his strategy in verse 9 and 10. He says, if they shall say unto, after we say, hey, we're here. I don't even know what they said. Hopefully he didn't say, me and my friend are here, because then it would be like, well, we're going to come down and kill you. But maybe he announced it, the army of the Lord is here. Wouldn't that be something? Two men go up and say, the army of the Lord, of the God of Israel is here. But they said, if they say unto us, tarry until we come to you, then we will stand still in our place. He's laying out the fleece, and we will not go up unto them. And so he says, but if they say, come up unto us, then we will go up, for the Lord hath delivered them into our hand, and this shall be a sign unto us. This is really, truly, it's not only, it's testing the Lord, but it's asking for the Lord's leadership. He's saying, let's pray about this, let's see about this, let's see if God is in this. And so they do this, and they go up, and they both discover themselves unto the garrison of the Philistines. And the Philistines said, behold, the Hebrews come forth out of the holes where they have hid themselves. They're almost mocking them as being like, hey, they've been hiding like rats and rodents in their little holes, and now they've come out. We couldn't find them. We come down here and pillaged their land, and they were nowhere to be found. But now they're sticking their nose out and telling us that they're here for a fight. They call out to this garrison, and they're mocked. And so then the men of the garrison answered Jonathan and his armor bearer and said, Come up to us, and we will show you a thing. Now, I kind of thought, we used to always say, we'll show you a thing or two. That was kind of a saying that maybe we don't hear anymore. But what was the thing that they were going to show them? I don't really know. I mean, you can read all the commentaries you want. No one really knows. But certainly they would say, come look at the army that we have. Come look at how well fortified we are. Look at the equipment we have. Look at the chariots we have. Look at the soldiers and the horsemen we have. Look at what you're coming up against. Do you really want to fight this? You really want to come against this? We'll show you something. You come on up and we'll show you something. We'll show you a thing. And Jonathan said unto his armor bearer, he says, come up after me, for the Lord hath delivered them into the hand of Israel. You notice he didn't say into our hand. You realize how much glory he's giving to all of Israel? He doesn't say he's delivering them into our hand. Because it's the God of Israel. It's the God of the Jews. And he says he's going to deliver them into our hand. And so Jonathan climbed up on his hands and his feet. He basically was scampering up the side of this mountain, a steep area where he couldn't walk straight up. He's having to climb with his hands and his feet to get up where they're at. He probably chooses a place that's unlikely. He probably doesn't walk out in the open. He chooses a place that would be, I don't know if you've ever been to Lookout Mountain, but that's one of the things that amazed me about Lookout Mountain in the Civil War is that these soldiers climbed up a rock face. And I thought, man, it'd be a lot easier ways that I would rather come and attack an army than having to climb up a rock face right in front of them. But that's what they did. But that's what Jonathan and his armor bearer did. They chose this spot and climbed up on their hands and their feet, basically, crawling up this steep place. And he tells his armor bearer, he says, you just follow after me. And his armor bearer there in verse 13, after him, and they fell before Jonathan, and his armor bearer slew after him. I read some commentaries on that, and their idea is that Jonathan was out front swinging whatever instrument he had, if you're going and you got 20 men coming at you, you probably ain't got time to sit there and fight with one. You're going to stab one, move to the other, swing into him, you're going to stab the next, and his armor bearer is coming, and any of them that didn't die, he would put them through with his sword or whatever he had, and he'd make certain that one was dead, or that one that Jonathan completely missed, that he kills that one. I mean, they're moving through and they're slaughtering these men in a matter of just moments. And what happens is they're hearing all the other, this is this garrison outpost, and they're seeing out there in the distance their little guard is just being slaughtered. And they hear these hollers and these screams that are no doubt coming from those that are fighting, and God uses it in a mighty way. And his armor bearer slew after him in verse 13. And that first slaughter, which Jonathan and his armor bearer made, was about 20 men, was within a half acre of land, which a yoke of oxen might plow. So they came up, and within just a matter of the first few moments, 2 young men killed 20 soldiers that were well armed and well ready for any attack. And then look at verse 15, and there was trembling in the host in the field, and among all the people, the garrison, and the spoilers, they also trembled, and the earth quaked, so that it was a very great trembling. God often causes confusion in battle and causes great fear to win the battles for his people, and the Lord fights for his people. And even causes the earth to shake and tremble. And you already hear a bunch of men screaming in the dark, and they're either in the early morning or late evening or whenever this battle took place, and then you don't know what to do. It's dark, you just got torchlets or candles, and you're trying to figure out what's going on, and then the earth begins to shake and tremble itself. And you're already afraid because you don't know what's going on. And you think about this. I was thinking, you got 600,000 men. I always laugh because you go to these mega churches that have, 5,000 people. And you know what they always do? They have the small groups that they break together because they don't know anybody. You come in there and you go, were those people here before? no one knows anybody. But you take 300,000 or 500,000 foot soldiers in the night. It's not like they all had a United States flag, on their, they didn't have uniforms. When they didn't have their armor on, they're probably just in their everyday clothes. And they come out, and now they're scared. Who's attacking who? And God causes great confusion, just like he did with Gideon. Every man started turning his sword upon the other. And they were killing themselves because God was going to deliver them. And so far, there's only 2 men. There's only 2 men fighting. 2 men. Jonathan and his armor bearer, 2 young kids, if you will. I would look at them today. If I saw somebody that was 25 and someone that was 17 or 18, I go, those 2 kids. That's how we would look at it, right, Jerry? We say they're just kids. And so it says, and the watchmen of Saul and of Gideon of Benjamin looked, and behold, the multitude melted away. And they went on beating down one another. I mean, they're starting to flee, and they're running back, and they're killing each other. The watchmen of Saul, Saul's got some men out there that are keeping an eye on that huge army. And they're like, I can't believe what I'm seeing. I can't believe what I'm seeing. All of a sudden, they start killing each other out there, and they're all running away. And we haven't done anything. That's what's happening. And so Saul said unto the people that were with him, number now and see who is gone from us. He said, well, somebody must be out there doing something. He said, no, Jonathan. It's another interesting thing, rather than just immediately saying, let's pursue after them. You know how long it would take to count 600 people in the night? To count people. It would take some time. He says, number the people. Find out who has gone from us. And they numbered the people. And they come back and said, Jonathan and his armor bearers, the only ones we can't find. And so now Saul, instead of saying, well, we need to go out and help them. Sometimes, we ought to be that way when we see someone on fire for the Lord and wants to go do something for the Lord. We ought to get behind them. Instead, a lot of times what we do is we poo-poo it. We say, well, their fire will go out too. They're just a flash in the pan right now. But, when someone is wanting to go and do something good for the Lord, let's encourage them. We ought to encourage others to do the right things. I thought it was great. Enrique told me some of the men want to build a ramp for the shed. I said, great. That's the one thing off my schedule I don't got to do. Thank you. Praise the Lord for those that want to do something for the Lord. And so he says, let's, instead of going out, he numbers them. And then it says this, in verse 19, it came to pass while Saul talked unto the priest. Read verse 18. And Saul said unto Ahiah, bring hither the ark of God. For the ark of God was with the children of Israel. It didn't have the ark there. And he tells the high priest, he says, we didn't have the ark. We need to have the ark and march into this battle. Did he really need the ark? Maybe he's stalling. Maybe he just doesn't know what to do. And he's talking with the priest there. And it came to pass while Saul talked with the priest that the noise that was in the host of the Philistines went on and increased. I mean, it's getting louder and louder. This battle is just, you can hear the shouting and all the horses and everything that's going on. And so Saul, after he says to the priest, wait, we need the ark. And then he goes, never mind that order. Withdraw thine hand. I mean, he's here, there. He doesn't quite know what to do. He should have just sought the Lord. He said, Lord, what would you have me to do at this moment? And Saul and all the people that were with him assembled themselves, and they came to the battle. And behold, every man's sword was against his fellow. And there was a very great discomfiture of the people there. They were all confused. So when they finally assembled and they came to where this battle was, and they saw that they were killing each other. Moreover, look at verse 21. The Hebrews that were with the Philistines before that time, which went up with them into the camp from the country round about, even they also turned to be with the Israelites and with Saul and Jonathan. Now, I had to struggle with that verse a little bit to understand it. And I was studying and reading, and John Gill says that, there were many Hebrews that would become slaves or servants to the Philistines. And if you think about an army of this size, when we have an army fighting a battle, it takes a whole lot of people to supply fuel, food, armor, missiles, everything. You got one jet flying over there, and it takes a whole lot of people to keep that jet in the air. It takes mechanics, it takes fuel, it takes guys doing maintenance on that thing, and people guiding and directing, and all the things of battle. Well, even an army like this, trying to feed 600,000 men or whatever's there, even if it's just 300,000, takes a lot of people. And so there were a lot of servants that probably were taking slaves, Hebrews, with the Philistines, that says went up with them into the camp from the country round about. They may have even went to just save their own necks and said, you know what, we're going to lose this battle, so we're going to help them. Don't know. But it said they turned against the Philistines. They turned to be with the Israelites, where was Saul and Jonathan. So there was this great battle that Saul showed up late to. And they saw what was going on, and these Hebrews, they turned to fight. And it says, likewise, all the men of Israel which had hid themselves in Mount Ephraim, when they heard that the Philistines fled, even they also followed hard after them in battle. So now look what Jonathan and an armor bearer started. Their faith took off a great movement. And many others joined it. They joined it. And sometimes I think about, even as Marco's message this morning, we say we have great faith. We say we believe it's the last days, but we don't live like it's the last days. We don't live like we believe what we say we believe a lot of times. But here it says that even those that were in hiding came out and said, we're going to do what we're supposed to do. And they also followed hard after them in the battle. So the Lord, you see, it's the Lord that saved Israel that day. There was no way that two men were going to defeat an army. And there was no way that 600 men were going to defeat this army. The Lord saved Israel that day, and the battle passed over under Beth Haven. So we can see some things in Saul's leadership. First, he did nothing. His son took the lead. His son sought the Lord's will. And Saul delayed even further by taking time to just number the people. He gave orders that he quickly reascended. And he was rash in his quick behavior and his decisions that show that nor lack of character and why God was so displeased with him in so many ways. But then, after this army pursues the people, and they get this great battle and this victory going on, he charges the men foolishly in verse 24. The men of Israel were distressed that day. They already had to flee their homes. They already probably had hardly any armament or any weapons of war, and they had lack of food. And Saul adjured the people, saying, cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, that I may be avenged on my enemies. Look how he puts that. That I may be avenged on my enemies. He made this battle personal. He didn't say that the Lord may win a great victory. But he said, I don't want anybody to eat anything. Now, being that he is King Saul, he probably had ample food right around his tent all the time for him to eat. And the people out there that are trying to figure out how to have left their homes and everything else are already probably picking the scraps of what they can and trying to figure out how to eat, in fear of being killed while they're trying to provide. And now after they have pursued them, he says, I want a fast. I don't want anybody to fast or anybody to eat right now. He adjured the people, saying, cursed be the man that eateth any food until evening, that I may be avenged on my enemies. So none of the people tasted any food. And when the people were come into the wood, behold, the honey dropped. I mean, there was honeycombs there that were just laying there, but no man put his hand to his mouth, for the people feared the oath. They said, man, I'm starving to death, and there's some good honey that would really nourish me help me, give me some strength. But they feared. And Saul takes this already weak army and he makes them weaker by telling them not to eat, discouraging them. And we can learn many things from Saul and in our own spiritual life about, first of all, our battle is not our battle. It's always the Lord's battle. And we ought to always seek the Lord in everything we do. Saul disobeyed the words of Samuel, and here in the battle of the Philistines, you know what? If he would have done what the Lord wanted him to do that day, I think that maybe the Lord would have just completely obliterated the Philistines. But you know, all of Saul's reign, who did he fight? The Philistines, over and over and over. And it isn't long after that we see them come to battle and with Goliath come out and stand there and defy the God of the army of the Israelites. You know, but Jonathan didn't know about what his father had said. As we read on, we see that Jonathan, he saw that honeycomb there in verse 27, and he stuck his staff or his spearhead, the butt of his spear, if you will, or whatever he had, his rod, in that honeycomb and just licked it. Just got a little bit. I mean, I don't think he even stayed there and ate. He just stabbed it in there, rolled it around, and as he's chasing this army, he's eating some. And you know what? Some other saw it and heard of it and said, man, does he not know what the king said, that his dad said, that no one's to eat anything? And one answered the people and said, thy father straitly charged the people, in verse 28, with an oath, saying, cursed be the man that eateth any food this day. And the people were faint. Then Jonathan said, my father hath troubled the land. See, I pray you how mine eyes have been enlightened because I tasted a little of this honey. He says, how foolish. You see how much energy more I've got because I've had something to nourish me. How much more if happily the people had eaten freely today of the spoil of their enemies which they found. For had there not been now a much greater slaughter of the Philistines? He said, we would have probably done better, but the people were so weak. And they smote the Philistines that day from Rishmash to Algeron, and the people were very faint. And so, as we look at the results of Saul's order and the foolishness, the people flew. What happens next is the people are, after they leave and the people lose control of themselves, when it comes evening, because that was till that evening, the people flew on the spoil in verse 32, took sheep and oxen and calves and slew them on the ground, and the people did eat them. They ate them raw. They just were so famished that they didn't cook it, and they ate it with the blood, which was against God's command. Saul had pushed them so hard that I've got to eat, and I ain't got time to cook it. I've got to eat. And they told Saul, saying, behold, the people sin against the Lord when they eat with the blood. And he said, ye have transgressed. Roll a great stone unto me this day. Again, it's about him. You guys have sinned, and I just need to hide under a rock. And Saul said, disperse yourselves among the people and say, bring them to me, every man his ox and every man his sheep, and slay them here. And sin not against the Lord in eating the blood. And all the people brought every man his ox with him that night and slew them there, which is another foolish order. Now he's having them kill their own animals and make a sacrifice. And he built an altar unto the Lord. The same was the first altar he built unto the Lord. And Saul said, let us go down after the Philistines by night and spoil them until morning light. Let us not leave a man. And they said, do whatsoever seemeth good unto thee. And the priest then said the priest, let us draw near hither unto God. And the priest says, maybe we should ask God about this. Maybe we should ask the Lord about this. And Saul asked counsel of God. Shall I go down after the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into the hand of Israel? But look what happened. And he answered him not that day. You know, if you pray and you don't get an answer from the Lord, well, pretty much the answer is no. You know, if you're praying and you're not getting any response, probably number one reason, you're not close enough to the Lord. You're too far backslidden, because I've been there. I know what that's like when you pray and it's just like your prayers go boom, 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 boom. and you just feel like nothing happens, you don't get a response. Not that God's going to talk audible, but he will give you leadership. He will give you understanding. He will give you guidance. And Saul asked him, but he answered him not. Then Saul said, draw ye near thither, all the chief priests of the people, and know and see wherein this sin hath been this day. He doesn't look within himself. He doesn't say, well, God's not speaking to me because I messed up. He's looking to see where else the sin is. And we do that. We do that. If you hear a good message sometimes, like we heard from Marco this morning, do you ever look around and say, boy, I hope they're hearing this? Instead, we should always be looking within and saying, Lord, what are you saying to me by Marco's message today? What are you trying to tell me? Well, we need to learn to look within ourselves. And he finds out, he says, as the Lord liveth, which saveth Israel, though it be Jonathan my son, he shall surely die. He says, I'm going to find out who it is that's done this. And even if it's Jonathan, he'll die. And of course, after they whittled through the people, they first separated themselves, and it came down to just Saul and Jonathan. And then it came down to where they drew lots again, and it came down to Jonathan. And Jonathan basically says, I guess I'm going to die because of your oath. Another foolish thing. Saul said, Jonathan shall die, who hath wrought, in verse 45, this great salvation in Israel. His people are asking this. Shall he die? So are you going to kill him who just gave us this great victory? God forbid, as the Lord liveth, there shall not one hair fall to the ground, for he hath wrought this with God this day. The people rescued. They basically said, we're not going to kill him. We're not going to follow you in this. He was losing the leadership of his people. This is long before David shows up. This is how the people saw their king and the mistakes he was making. So Saul went up from following the Philistines, and the Philistines went to their own place. He didn't pursue them anymore. It just ended. And he fought those Philistines the rest of his life. In verse 52 it says, there was sore war against the Philistine all the days of Saul. And why was that? Because Saul did not seek the Lord. Saul did everything by his flesh and did not follow the Lord or look to the Lord like he should have, when he should have. We know that because we can see the foolishness, and we have it, and we can study it. We have the Lord's word, and we need to always seek the Lord in everything that we do. Everything that we do, we ought to ask the Lord to give us leadership and guidance, that we do the right thing. Pray for the conference. Pray that we do the right thing. And, Darren said something to me about, well, we should just buy more chairs if we're going to continue to do this, if we need chairs. That to me that's faith. Because I pray that the Lord will allow us to continue to have conferences here until he comes back. But we need to always ask the Lord. Say, Lord, what would you have us to do? What would you have us to do? We're few in number. The Lord can do great things. And I really look for a blessing this week in the preaching of the Lord. But we need to pray that the Lord would just bless the conference, bless every man. That he not be speaking for himself, but that he be speaking through the Holy Spirit, the words what God has given to us. Pray for all those this week. Brother